Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started.
Hello.
Guess
Who
who's
is
back?
who's back again? You guys, I've missed you so much. I have little tears in my eyes. Sarah and I had an irresistible topic today, and I had to hop back in here and say hello and chat with you guys on some cool stuff that I found. So I've been supporting a real life mobile bartender in her real life business. And for those of you who don't know, I don't come from the mobile bartending industry. So I've never seen the inside of a rig, but I've supported Sarah for the last several years in supporting you guys in your actual rigs and business and all things. And so I always had a bird's eye view. Well, now I've been in the shit with a real life mobile bar owner and I've seen.
I know I'm interrupting, but I feel like we should rewind a little bit because
Okay.
I think the last time that anybody heard from you and I together, I think obviously I did a podcast. It was like, Dawn has gone her own way. She's starting her own thing, and to go follow you on the Instagram and the TikToks and all of that. And at the time, I think the intention was that you were going to build your own coaching space so that you could do the work that you just truly loved in the world, which was we were able to do kind of together on a smaller level, but that you really wanted to create a Dawn brand around coaching. And you did that for a while. And what you determined through experimentation is something that you really love doing that you used to do under the umbrella of Mobile Bev Pros was the operation side and the actual implementation side. And it didn't light you up as much to just do that for yourself. And while you were kind of going through and doing the coaching, one of your coaching clients was a mobile bar who had these very tangible operational needs. And you were like, I would love to support you in that. And because you had relevant information regarding the mobile bar space from supporting our community for so many years, you were able to just kind of jump right in there and get to work. And so while you didn't necessarily have mobile bar specific experience, operational experience, systems, and you had seen the inside of how I build systems and how we work systems within Mobile Bev Pros. And so you now have kind of rebranded your goals for entrepreneurship, and you're doing online business management.
Yes. Yeah. Short story long on that. That's exactly how the last 3 months played out. I had somebody come to me for coaching in leadership, and we formed the perfect role for this person. She's bottlenecking her business. She wants to grow, keeps hiring people for this position, and it's not working out every time. So she hired me to support her in what's going on, what's going wrong with this position. And we highlighted a lot of things, but what I was finding is as we were defining the role, I loved the role. I was like, this sounds like a freaking blast. I'll do it. And to your point, what I found was that one thing that's always been with me in whatever lifetime, whatever era I'm in, is this love of overhauling systems, overhauling stock rooms, overhauling paperwork, whatever it is. I love I'm a taskmaster. I love check boxes. I love to have something accomplished. I love when things are really wrecked and I get to come in and be like, boom, now it's very clear. It's amazing. We have a system and a process here. And I took that for granted. And I've done this before. I did this to myself before I ever even started with MVP. I did this to myself where I was like, I just want to be a coach because I do love coaching business owners and I love coaching both in leadership, but also in the metaphysical. And I love going deep and having intimate conversations with people. And every time I pigeonhole myself into I'm a coach, I go, I don't have a task list. And I get really sad. I love operationally, I love checking boxes. I love having shit to do. And I love also being the man behind the curtain. I love being the right hand of the king. Like, you don't have to tell anybody I'm your Merlin, but let me be your Merlin. You know, I love that so hard. And so that's where all that came from. And then I started supporting this mobile bar owner, and I've seen the inside of these systems, and a couple of things have come to light in conversations that you and I are having, not necessarily around where she is, but around like warning signs that it might turn out that way. And specifically because I've seen this so many times in leadership, even in retail. I've already given her the warning. She says, yes, okay, I'm in, I'm on the lookout for it. And you guys might also need to be on the lookout for it, because what I find is that when you hire out a portion of your business and it gives you more freedom, more space, those of us who are addicted subconsciously most of the time to fight or flight in our business, meaning that we love the chaos. We love feeling needed. We need the business to just always be like one fire that I need to put out after the next. We don't realize we love that because in it, it feels like our adrenal glands are in, freak out mode. But afterward, when we get that space and that clarity, there's like this gaping hole. And what I've found in the past is that leaders will fill it. They'll cram more stuff into that space so they feel needed, so that they feel valuable in their work. Because if everything's going smoothly and there are no fires to put out, then we don't get to play Superman in our business. And sometimes that sucks. We have to really come to terms with the fact that, like, potentially we really love being needed all the time, even at our own detriment.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen this a number of times, not only in the entrepreneurial space, but in the employee space. I actually have a friend who was telling me the last time we were together that it's very important to his mental health that people rely on him. And he'll take phone calls on vacation because that means to him that he's got job security and that he does something that no one else can do, which to me and my leadership brain is wild because my whole goal in life is to not be needed by the people who are on my team. Like, I've given them the tools they need to succeed. They know what they need to do. And the only thing they need from me is support, resources, guidance, that strategic, approach potentially, but that nobody on the team can't do their job without me, right? That's my goal, is to make sure that everyone has what they need. And that was definitively not theirs. And they specifically said, my mental health is stronger when I know I'm needed. And we see that with entrepreneurs. And of course, they're the ones that are usually like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I'm crazy busy. Right. It's like, okay, well, that isn't and I've said this before, but being busy is not a helpful phrase, because busy doing what? Is it busy because there's too much chaos in your business and you don't know which direction is up because you're putting out fires all the time because you don't have enough support? Is it because you fill your days with things that you absolutely love doing and you're busy because everything else just doesn't fill your cup as much as the stuff that you're doing? Like, what does busy mean? Right. And when we peel back the layers there, especially in solopreneur, I'll say entrepreneurial ventures, wherein the owner is the one that's carrying and juggling a lot of these balls with very little support. And I don't mean event execution. That's low level stuff. Yes, you hire a bartender, they come in, they help you, maybe they help you unload and tend bar and then pack up, but then you're left with all the cleanup. You're left with all the sales calls. You're left with all the admin. You're left shopping and packing. That's what I'm talking about, because that stuff really distracts business owners from that higher return on investment activity, such as networking, outreach, marketing, sales. I find that if the owner is keeping all of those things, it's almost always because they like the sense of being busy. They like the doing of the work and they like being needed, versus they can't find good help, which is oftentimes what they'll say, not necessarily what is true.
That brings me to my next point, which is very taboo, which is I like my work more than I like most people. And people don't want to admit that. There's a lot of people out here who like their business more than they like their husband, more than they like their kids. They like their business more than they like their friends. And let me tell you something, that's okay. When you remove the shame of like, I enjoy my business more than I enjoy cooking dinner for my family, then you're going to start seeing alignment. because you can start getting honest with yourself about your priorities. Because oftentimes I see people implementing stress that doesn't need to be there just because they'd rather be doing this thing than what society tells them they should be wanting, right? And so if you like your business more than you like your partner, just say that. You don't have to say it to them, but say it internally. Let it be a truth. Call me. You can say, I'm a safe space. Say it to me. And then move on and know that when you're setting your priorities, that comes first because you love it most. Okay. The other thing here is that I just don't think people have seen good leadership. This is not a new story. This has been the same story since I've been in leadership for 13 plus years. Like, people just haven't seen what good leadership looks like. And no, your boss when you were 16 was not a leader. That manager that you hated at the Walmart that you worked at for 6 months is not a good leader. Like, you'll know a good leader because they leave a mark on your life. You can't forget them. They're there forevermore with you. And if you're hiring out in such a way that's like this task, and you're not looking at how do I empower somebody to want to do more, especially at those upper levels. Sure, you hire some bartenders. That's one thing. When we're talking about getting people into a position where they have to quote unquote care as much about your business as you do, I hear that a lot. Oh, nobody's going to care as much as I do unless you give them a reason to. That's where good leaders, that's where management stops and leadership starts. You can't manage your way into inspiring someone to be trustworthy with your baby, but you can lead someone to that space. And so if you haven't seen what good leadership looks like, do some research. There's a lot of like leadership fluff out there. Sarah, you've mentioned the book before, Leadership is Bullshit or something like that. Probably start there so that you can like deconstruct all the stuff that's not good leadership, because a lot of it is fluffy and it's not applicable in the real world. But also like get with your mentors and figure out, look at your mentors and see like who are they leading and how are they leading? What do they do that I love that I could also implement in my space to become a better leader and not just a manager?
I think this is a good time to bring up this axiom, this tenet that you and I talk about a lot with clients, in that your business will tell you when change needs to be made. And in regards to leadership, and this is kind of just harkening back to what I left off saying before I ceded the floor here, was that if you have in your mind that you can't find good people and that nobody wants to work and that people just have a poor work ethic these days, if any of those things ever leave your lips, the problem is your leadership. 10 toes down, hands down, absolutely 100%. The issue is your leadership at that point, because one, people do like to work. They want to be useful. They want to know that their time on this earth is making an impact. They want to be productive. That is an inherent drive. You cannot tell me otherwise. Even if that person prefers to play video games, they feel like they're being productive during that time, right? So people do want to do things. They do need to be inspired. They want to learn, they want to grow, they want to feel like they belong, that they are being invested in, that their effort and time is going towards progress, not just for the company, but for them and their career and where they're trying to go. And so as a leader, it's your job to figure out how you're pulling all of that back. It's not just a paycheck. And we know this. Gen Z and Gen Alpha behind them, they don't care. Yes, they know they need money, but they don't care about making a good impression on the boss. They don't care about their reputation within that, because they know they're going to have 15 to 20 jobs throughout there. They're not going to have a retirement in one position. What they want to know is that the adults, in this case, I would assume that a lot of our owners, our business owners here, are hiring those that are probably either age-wise younger or career-wise earlier. And so it's your job as the leader to give them the pathway, to show them the way, to give them the communication skills, to set expectations, to breathe resources into them. I had one bartender at one point, and she was going to school for social work. And the conversations that I would have with her during the downtimes were specifically about her goals, because I had already been through a master's program and the process of getting a job afterwards. And so I was talking her through, how networking and connecting with people during this time is really going to help when she gets out. Like, that was not bar related, but I was showing that I was interested in her and that her time was actually valuable to her future work goals. Right. And so there's little ways that we can do this, and there's big ways that we can do this. You can certainly invest in, if you work with me for a couple of years consistently, then, I'll pay for a college credit if that's what they're doing, or we'll, take a managerial course together online. There's so many options based on the employee to feed more than just their pockets, right? Leadership isn't you clocked in at this time and you clocked out and all I care about is your productivity in between. Leadership is taking full responsibility for their human experience during their time with you so that they feel like it is more than a paycheck. And I promise you, if you do that as a leader, they will start to care about your business as much as you care about the business, because it has become a part of their story and their narrative as well. People have not decided collectively that we don't want to work. We've decided collectively that the capitalistic machine is no longer serving us as individuals and communities. And therefore, we are choosing to invest less of ourselves in that initiative. And we have, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, the opportunity to change that narrative. And then you have no problems keeping staff and having shifts picked up and having people eager to take on more responsibility, which will then get a lot of those tasks off your list with people that you trust. And we have examples of this, right? You and I, we have a client who has essentially decided to run a family business, mafia style. No, not really. And he's taken so many of his nephews and cousins and brother-in-law under his wing and used his business as ways to foster and mentor and give them life skills so that he's setting them up for better professions down the road. Now, it doesn't have to be family, but we've seen the power of leadership and transforming just within the mobile bar industry for leaders in the mobile bar space to really pour into their employees in a way that's not just giving them shifts.
Yeah, I'll use myself as an example. I've been self-led, obviously, because I'm a leader for many years. And what I've found in this recent stint was that I didn't have enough evolution occurring. When I coach people, it's like I have Calendly and you book a time with me, and then we show up for an hour to 90 minutes. We have our chat. And then if you get the extendo package, maybe we're in Telegram. And that's it. That's the extent. And I want this project that I'm on right now was so exciting to me because I got to see the inside of HoneyBook. How long have you guys known about HoneyBook? And like I come on and I talk to you and I talk about like the pain points that people have of HoneyBook. Now I get to get my hands in there, dirty with the HoneyBook. Which, by the way, if somebody is listening to this podcast and you have Dubsado and you're willing to let me take a tour through Dubsado and how it works and all its functionality, I won't break anything, but I would love to see the inside of your Dubsado. I just love to learn new tools, new skills, new information. I love to learn. And coaching wasn't giving me that. Like there was no challenge in my day. There was no like, fuck, how do I get this automation to run the way I want it to? You know what I mean? And like MVP gave me that every single day. And I didn't realize how much I really loved that and how much of that was part of it. So, part of my self leadership moving forward is that I know whatever roles I take on, I'm going to want challenge. I'm going to want to look at things and go, this is a mess. How can we clean this up? I'm going to want to have to learn new skills or new tools in order to make things work. And so you can start looking at people that you're hiring and finding out like what do they want to learn? And how does that benefit my now if you get somebody in who's like, yeah, I'm so passionate about coding, 64-bit games. Okay, probably not applicable. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not a great candidate. If you get somebody in who's like, I want to learn the events industry because I want to become a wedding planner. Okay, industry adjacent. Here's what it looks like to run the inside of one of these and the type of information we need from these clients and what it looks like to have to chase clients down or like, right? So many things. And so when you're hiring, know that you're not going to be able to inspire somebody who just wants a paycheck, but you are going to be able to inspire somebody whose values, whose desires, whose goals align with your own. The other thing that you said earlier was that, this list of things, your business is telling you what it needs, right? I also this weekend was like, you know what, Sarah, I said this to Harley, my lover. I said, Sarah's always saying, like, your business will tell you what it needs. I said, that's so true. I said, but I think that life will tell you what it needs. Like, I think your life is always telling you what it needs from you, right? And I've called that the living language historically, but now I'm seeing like full circle. It's just that life is telling you what it needs from you. And so you always say your business is telling you what it needs. And another way that you'll know that further leadership skill is what you'll need is if you hear yourself saying that you can't trust people. And you mentioned it in your speech there, but you didn't highlight it at the very front. I wanted to like asterisk, underline all the things. Like if you are feeling like you can't trust people, leadership is potentially before you. And any other number of things could be telling you that you need leadership. If you're finding that there's drama within your team, if you're finding that your team is tardy often, or that they're not picking, they're coming in, but they're not showing up in the what you said was the dress code or whatever. There's a million reasons why you might need leadership. It's a skill. It's to your point, it's not something people do preventatively. Like nobody's like, I'm going to start a business one day. I'll go ahead and learn to be a good leader today. Leadership is best learned through the hellfires, but you have to be listening to your business because it is going to tell you. And we worked with an adept business owner. I think he's in year two, one of our faves. And we had a conversation with him recently, and he gave us this whole list of things that his business needed from him. And then he asked us, how will I know when my business needs that next step? And we just reflected back to him that, like, you just told us that your business needs that next step, and here are all the reasons why. But sometimes you do need somebody to reflect that back to you because I think you can get too close to it or you can be too in the weeds. And what I'm seeing is that you guys are running around like chickens with your heads cut off, all the way off. You're making cash and you're just going, 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 going. And so sometimes you don't have enough time or space or capacity to slow all the way down and be like, here's what my business needs, much less to implement it. So, like, hire an implementer. And in your down season, you just sent out that email about business wintering. Now's the time. Like, get your leadership skills together, find somebody to onboard that you can bring on and start showing them the reins now because busy season will return and it will not be better if you didn't clear your plate while you had the chance because you guys are just piling more stuff on your plate and it just gets messier from there and harder for you to retroactively teach somebody because now you don't have time, much less to teach somebody how to do what you haven't even created a system for yet.
On that similar note here, if you're constantly putting out fires, you don't have systems. Constantly things that are breaking or messages that are or requests from clients that are falling through the cracks, or you're getting multiple emails from clients that are like, hey, where's this information? What's this information? Or you're getting multiple emails or calls from your staff being like, hey, what's the information on this event? And what am I supposed to wear? And what time am I supposed to be there? Any of those things are indicators that you don't have, one, systems, two, a standard process to guide and navigate your staff and your clients through your client journey or through the staffing journey. I've really struggled to figure out why this remains to be the case, especially those that are in my programming, because I feel like I used to be weak, but I do spend a lot of time trying to walk people through that roadmap, the mobile bar roadmap of how to build systems that support growth and scalability. If your business is starting to break down, you're getting too busy, you're dropping balls, then you have not built a system of scalability. There should be touch points that you've consciously and intentionally mapped out that this happens at this stage and this happens at this stage and this triggers this at this stage, and we just move them through. Because otherwise, because our events industry, every client is at a different stage, unless they have the event at the same day, right? We do have some of that. But for the most part, all of your clients are going to be at a different stage in their client journey. That's a lot to keep in your head. And that's one of the reasons why people get into like, oh, I can't hire anybody because they, are always dropping balls. They don't know what they're doing. I assumed this was common sense, like all of these things. And it's like, no, it's just because everything that you've done is living in your head right now. Like That's the worst place for it. That's not a system, that's chaos. And in that case, and it brings it all the way back kind of to what we started talking about here, is this fight or flight of business. And I do think that at a certain point, people just kind of, what is the normalize is kind of the word that I want to say. They just kind of acclimate to this constant chaos. And that's what they equate to success. That's kind of like my long story short here is what I'm trying to say is like, if you're busy and that makes you feel safe, but the minute you alleviate that busyness through help or support or systems or any of those things that help you offload the stuff, the chaos in your brain, and you start to freak out because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not busy enough. Oh my gosh, there's not enough business. You might be addicted to the stress, and that's going to hinder your growth ability.
I'll say that from my experience, which is very limited, one mobile bar business on the inside right now, the very best time for people to get into the academy is either like I'm starting my business today. Boom. Also, the academy needed more than a rig. Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. The second time that is a good time to get into the academy, many of you that are listening already have lifetime memberships, and you're like, it's just hanging out there. Okay. I've heard the term like there's a pile of like mobile bev pros things that I need to do. And it's beneath the list of honeybook things that I need to do or client alcohol orders that I need to do, right? And it just kind of sits over here. So when you have a down season or a slow season, when you're wintering, when your business wintering, get that shit together. Get it together. Get back into the academy, find out what you need to find, build your systems, put them in place, create the automations, make sure that they're full-fledged, hire somebody to do it for you, whatever you need to do. But like those systems, I'm not confident that people can implement those systems retroactively without help. To be in year 3, and to go into the academy when you're doing 300 plus $1,000 a year in business, you're already too busy to like, well, what do I go back and do? That is needs to be done during business wintering. And you guys, perfect timing. Like you're about to, the season, it's upon us. You know what I mean? Like you can get back in there and get your system straight, because that way next season you're not just chaos all over the place. You know what I mean? It's not craziness, it's not living in your head. And you have to understand that a lot of the trust issues that you have in hiring people is that it lives in your head, it's pen and paper. And so when you're passing it over to somebody without a system who's not at all familiar with our industry, I have an advantage. You know what I mean? Like I didn't come from not into this. I can't imagine if I had come from not into this, that I would not have been able to support this incredible woman the way that I did. Mobile Bev Pros prepared me for that, right? But I will say that looking at her business and hearing from her life, there's no way she could have done this without help. And this is why all 3 of those people that she had hired failed miserably. Because one, it lives on a pen and paper or in her head. Two, there's no system in place. They would have had to have built a system that they have no exposure to. Do you know what I mean? And so you have exposure to your business if you're not interested in hiring it out, that's totally fine. Do it during off season when you have the time. Make the time, because it'll pay you and it's going to pay you in more time down the road.
And if you have the time and you still don't want to do it yourself, call Dawn, because that she's doing that thing now and she can help you. And on the leadership front.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You can call me, and I do have time available. What I'm doing right now is fractional, guys. So it's not like you don't have to hire me full time and like you pay me more than your own salary. That's not how it works. So don't get nervous. But if you are interested, if your honeybook's a mess, I'd love to see the inside of somebody's eCinch. Oh, let me have it. Dubsado. I can't wait to try out Dubsado. I'm familiar with all the email marketing platforms and all the things. So I can not only implement systems but advise. I can also go in to your Lifetime Mobile Bar Academy account and find the information that you've been waiting to find for 3.5 months. You asked Sarah about it. She told you where it was. You wrote it down, and now that's buried somewhere. I know where it lives. I'm intimately familiar with the academy. I can go in and find that information quick, fast, if you have an account, that is. And so, all that to say that, like, yes, I do this work. Please reach out. You can find me on Telegram, on any of the socials. You can email me, oracle@dawnlchristian.com. and we can get it on and popping. But guys, I do want you to know, of all the things that we've said here today, is that if you are suspicious that you might be addicted to stress, and you've likely seen it in more places than your business, that's a mental health issue. And like, find somebody that can support you. Talk to a friend even if you have to about that, because it is an addiction. It's a real addiction, and we don't talk about it enough in our society, how very detrimental that is on the physical body, on the emotional body, on the nervous system, to be just in a constant state of fight or flight and pounding down coffees while you're in fight or flight, like overhauling the system that's already overhauled. So like, yeah, get with somebody and get support on that if you're worried that you might be addicted to stress.
And I already shared this with you, but I'll share this with everyone else because you were there at that very pivotal moment where I decided to sell Bar Magnolia because I was juggling Bar Magnolia and Mobile Bev Pros post pandemic. Both were multiple six-figure businesses, both were requiring a ton of time and effort from me. And so something had to give. And obviously, I sold my mobile bar and continued to support people through education system, the whole 9 yards. The 2 years after the sale, so we sold in 2021. It's now, is it 2022 that I sold it? No, it was 2021. Oh my gosh, has it been 4 years already? It's like 3.5 years. Oh my gosh, that makes this worse. Okay, in that it has taken me years to overcome my addiction to busyness. And when I tell people, like, at one point, I had a full-time job, Bar Magnolia, two kids under the age of 4, postpartum anxiety. I had an Airbnb rental. My husband was in law school. He also worked a job that required travel 25% of the time. We had multiple pets. Like, it was nuts. And I was building Bar Magnolia from nothing at the time. So I was doing all the events myself, all the networking that I could possibly do. It was crazy. That was not even my breaking point, which I think is like, I also then launched Mobile Bev Pros, added all of that on top of that, right? It was not a good time, but I was somehow juggling all the things. And slowly I started to peel things off. So we sold the Airbnb, and I quit my full-time job and went full-time into Bar Magnolia. And I hired some support so that I had some help with the girls and then also in the business. And so slowly I started to like take off these things. And then COVID happened and shut the world down. And all I had were my girls and Mobile Bev Pros because Bar Magnolia was shut down. And I saw what it was like and could be like to not be so crazy busy. And so when a lot of people talk about the pandemic and how it was kind of like awful for their mental health, it was literally the best thing that ever happened to me because I had months of opportunity to just relax and not continue to zip around and do all the things and max out my schedule and just go nonstop. It was like this brief pause, and it was briefer here in the South than it was elsewhere. So like if it had gone for a year, I don't know what I would have done or what that would have looked like, but it was brief enough that I was able to really reassess. And towards the end is when I hired you with the goal of like integrating all the things because I felt like I was going in a million different directions. I then sold Bar Magnolia and all I had was Mobile Bev Pros. And then we had moved. So we moved out of the city. We were now on an acre and a half. It was quiet. We're across from the lake. So it was really beautiful. And I really had this opportunity to rebuild what I thought life could be like. And I will 100% tell you, as you were there, I struggled with not being busy. I struggled with filling it. Like there was a period of time with Mobile Bev Pros when we were doing multiple live events every year. I was releasing all the courses, webinars, products all the time. And each one of those is a huge, heavy lift. But remember the year where I filled out my calendar? I had like 10 meetings, like blocks on my calendar. Like it was crazy. And there was the next year that I was like, I did nothing. that was part of the healing process for me, to like just do almost nothing, to really pull back, to not create a whole lot of new stuff. And that was really uncomfortable too, but it was necessary because now I feel like I have this real ability to intentionally put the things in my life that I want there without the obligation, the people pleasing, without doing all the things, just doing the right things. And that's available to people. All of that's to say is it is a hard recovery in that when you've spent your whole life being told like success and productivity is what makes you valuable, it's hard to go from being super busy and super needed and all over the place to this place of balance without feeling like you're not trying hard enough, you're not doing enough, you're not successful enough. If I have space, then I could be doing more. I could be creating more products. I could be selling more. Instead, I've learned, that my ability to rest makes what I do put out in the world so much better, so much more intentional, so much more meaningful. But it was a hard lesson to learn. And so I can 100% understand this fight or flight tendency and the addiction to stress because I was there. And the recovery is not something that happened overnight. It took years to regulate my nervous system and to reduce that cortisol addiction or whatever it is that happens. It took a long time.
Rest is not a reward, it is required. Rest isn't something that you earn, it's something that you absolutely have to do. And instead of asking, like, have I done enough to deserve this rest? Ask yourself, have I rested enough to do my best work in the world? The other thing I wanted to just like throw in here at the end is that I've heard that it's a lot. If you guys are busy, you guys are cranking it out, you guys are crushing business out there and it feels like a lot on your plate, that is a symptom of not having systems. Because we went from it's a lot, people have left this position, I don't know how to fill it, it's a lot, Dawn, it's a lot, to like now I have dominion over this set of tasks and I've implemented systems elsewhere. And then now we're starting to see, oh, actually, this was on fire and we couldn't even see it. So let's fix this. Oh, actually, this was also on fire and we couldn't even see it. So let's fix this. And so now we're just moving gracefully, if I might add, maybe a missed email here and there, but mostly for the most part, gracefully. Now we're moving into like, okay, this needs a system and this needs a system. And what's happening is that there's breathing room and everything is still getting done. Okay, so if it feels like a lot to you, it's probably because it's all living on the inside. It's living on a piece of notebook paper. You don't have systems in place. So if it feels like a lot, it's a symptom of not having systems. And I just wanted to make sure that was reinforced as well.
As someone who loves systems, systems are the solution to a lot of things.
Listen, I'm going to give you guys gold. I was on a client call with Sarah recently, and she gave this mobile bartender advice that I heard through the ears of somebody who's working now with a mobile bartender and getting her business together. And I was like, oh, I'm taking that. Sarah said, I have a certain day each week that I do alcohol orders. So for this particular business that I'm supporting, she does alcohol order and menu creation. And prior to this conversation, it hadn't dawned on me fully that like that could all be put in one day. And then that way, if Wednesday is alcohol order day, then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are not. What the fuck? Like, that's crazy. And so I brought it back to this business owner and I was like, what do you think if I assign you those tasks on like Wednesdays? And she was like, yeah, that's gravy. Now, she doesn't get to all of them on Wednesdays, but they're Google tasks. So you can just move them over, right? So now they're on Thursday, and that's okay because she had like meetings or whatever. And so you'll find that I still want your system to have flexibility in it. Rigid structures don't last, right? So we want you to have some flexibility in there and recognize that you can consolidate a lot of these tasks into like chunks. Like if you're doing cold outreach, do it all on your slow, do it all on a Monday. If you're going to write your newsletter for the month, do it every month on the 27th for the following month. That way, like it's if it's not the 27th, you don't fucking have to worry about it. It's not just living in your head. So that creates a little space. Yeah, that one saved my life and well, her life, but it helped me to understand like how we can chunk out these tasks for you guys so that you have a little more breathing room.
If you're part of the 75 hard challenge, you can also do all of your tasks on the same day. But if you want to just do them every day, you can do that too. But you definitely have to do them. But you called them, but that is exactly what it's called. It is called chunking when you put like tasks together. And the science behind this is, I mean, it's probably obvious, but for anybody who might be like, no, why does that work? It's because when you shift focus, it takes you about 15 minutes or more to get back into the zone of doing what you were doing. And so if you can chunk like tasks together, you build an efficiency that you wouldn't have if you were doing a bunch of different tasks simultaneously. So if you were to design all your menus and then create the alcohol order and then put together like a final alignment email for a client, and then you went to another client and you did their menu and then you did their alcohol order, and then right, so you would be shifting tasks and shifting focus. It would take you longer to get through the same tasks than if you just chunked all the like tasks together. And so the way that I used to do that is I used to have days for very specific tasks, and I also would do meetings once a week with my lead at the time. So we'd have BEO meetings. And so I would want to make sure that I had all the details necessary for the upcoming events that week by that meeting. And so Mondays would be, one task, Tuesdays would be another task, Wednesdays would be, the final task. And then Thursdays would be our BEO meetings, for example. And so that enabled me to know everything was taken care of for all the events that were happening this weekend, like by Thursday. And I just could sleep better at night because there was no like other shoe waiting to drop because everything had been handled systematically.
And if you've heard us talk about visionaries versus implementers, Sarah is an anomaly. She's quite possible. She's definitely both as fuck, but like she's most people are one or the other. And I've realized very recently, I don't know that I am a visionary. I mean, I'm a leader, and oftentimes leaders are associated with the visionary archetype, but I'm definitely an implementer. And actually, like every stint I've ever had in leadership, the implementation was very much a part of that. But if you know that you're a visionary, you identify as a visionary, you identify as somebody who's creative. It's not sexy to you to do task management systems. And I get it. Believe me, I get it. You don't want overcomplicated funnels and all the things and the bells. There are ways to implement these things and keep them very simple so that it's not overwhelming. You don't have to learn how to do all the things. Like it's very simple, but also get yourself an integrator. Okay. Because if you're a visionary and you're not an anomaly like Sarah, there are people who thrive, like myself, in the I'll do it for you space. I'll just do it for you. Just give it to me. I'll do it. Do you know what I mean? And now when I'm leading, I don't lead that way. Okay. But like if it's your business and you need an integrator, like I'll do it. You know what I mean? If you are not that person, find that person. And they do exist. I know that like the whole thing with business right now is that people don't want to work. You address that very early on. That's a limiting story, not true. People love good work. People want to do good service. They want to do good work. You have to give them good work to do, and you have to be able to lead. If you're a visionary, be a leader and get somebody to do it for you. Okay, I love you guys. Thanks so much for having me on for this one.
Thanks for coming back and sharing kind of you kind of gone out into the wild and you've brought back new mobile bar stories from a deeper perspective, right? You're seeing the inside of the business now that you couldn't see from within Mobile Bev Pros because I was doing all of the inside of the business stuff. One thing I have learned since you've left is that while I'm a visionary integrator, my brain is a spreadsheet. And so the things I envision and the things I implement are tools and oftentimes helpful to other people. In hindsight, I look at the things that I've created for the Mobile Bev Pros community and the things that have been reflected back to me as the most valuable. And it's my spreadsheets, it's my calculators. And so I've gone on this like little tool building pilgrimage of taking the things given current technology capabilities. How can I take for example, pricing and packaging spreadsheet 2.0 and create an app that makes it way easier to do pricing and packaging in a way that a spreadsheet just kind of breaks people's brains sometimes, right? And so I've learned that while I'm a visionary, it's usually from a strategy engineer perspective, and I'm actually not very good at a lot of the other tasks, such as I can put together a baller email campaign from the fact that I know buyer psychology, I know how to use words, I can, craft a narrative and do some storytelling. But left to my own devices, that's the least sexy thing for me to be doing at any given time. I would much rather be working with formulas. I would much rather be building something that people can I literally built out an app for people to create strategies using AI and their plan. Just brain dump what your plan is, and AI will help you create based on my formula, the I map it, formula to create a strategy. And so, we were learning, you and I are both learning a lot about ourselves in this time apart, I could say, as to like where our zone of genius really is centered. And it turns out that I think you and I are both systems people. I just don't want to do systems for other people. I don't want to see inside your honeybook. I don't mind telling you how your honeybook should be organized or your Dubsado should be organized, or building my own CRM maybe so that I could just do it for you. But I don't want to go in and fix yours.
Yeah. And as a systems person, I listen, this is transferable knowledge. My favorite thing at Sally when I was a district manager and as a store manager and even as an associate, like my favorite things were always like going into stores that were quote unquote broken. And as a district manager, going into districts that had like really shitty history and like upgrading like the stock room's completely different, the audit, all the paperwork's cleaned out. Like I love that stuff. And I'm seeing now how that translates. I do want to do it for you. Like I do want to get in and your Dubsado is a freaking wreck. And I have to learn Dubsado because I don't know it yet, but I'm willing to learn Dubsado so that I can help you figure it out, right? Same thing with Honeybook. I didn't know Honeybook 4 weeks ago. And now like I'm a little whiz in there and I'm creating all sorts of cool like automations and things. And eventually, though, I will say the stress of Honeybook not being able to do what you guys need it to do is real. And so for this particular mobile bar owner, we are probably going to have to move her to Dubsado during her business wintering because it's just not as robust as we need it to be. Honeybook anyway. But there is like if you're pretty simple, if your business is pretty simple, it covers the basics, it does the things. If you're in a space where you have capacity because you're getting like one event a week, so you have capacity to you're handling all the things, then Honeybook's good for you. But this particular business owner, she has like, I don't know, 10 events on November 1st. Like, for whatever reason, November 1st is the hottest date on the calendar. She has like 10 events. And like, that's too much for somebody to have to be handling and touching all these things manually, right? We need something that's going to create tasks and work nicely with a task management system. I think you called Honeybook a closed system and Dubsado is not. And that is a real sticking point that you guys will get to as you continue to grow. All the knowledge in the world can't save you from the limitations of Honeybook when you come up against them. So,
Yeah, just add some clarity there because it did come up in our call with our client last week, but then it also came up on the Q&A call today for the Academy members about Dubsado versus Honeybook. And for a long time, I always gave the shortcut answer. Honeybook is easier to use. Dubsado has better functionality. And I used to point to like automations because Dubsado's always had fantastic automations. And then Honeybook released their if then, which was like, okay, so now it has better automations than Honeybook used to have, but still not as good as Dubsado. But the reality is this: if your goal is to scale, Dubsado still has better functionality, more robustness than Honeybook. And moving CRMs is a nightmare. The reason CRMs can get $40 a month for something that your business relies on so heavily is because it's so sticky, they know you won't leave. Once you're in there for a year or two and you get events in there, moving from Honeybook to Dubsado, one, you're not going to want to move your clients because now the client experience for them is clunky. They paid and signed over here, but now they're getting emails and like all the things over here. And so you're going to run simultaneously two CRMs. I mean, honestly, that's probably enough for most people to say no, thank you. Now, I say that, and like maybe Dubsado now has like white glove service and they will like import all of your things, including contracts and payment records. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen that is possible. But the way that I did it when I transferred from HoneyBook to Dubsado was I just ran those two simultaneously. Anything I booked prior to Dubsado was still in HoneyBook, and everything after was in Dubsado. And it took me about a year to get all the way through all of those events. But there was no hiccup on the client side. There was no, they didn't know I was running two different systems. And then you're setting up two different systems. And listen, there's not a single person that I have supported through the process of setting up Dubsado that has not cried. So, like, it's not the most fun to set up your CRM, but once you do it, it's like an employee. It does its thing, it runs on autopilot, and it saves you a ton of time and mental energy and all of those things. But there's nothing about changing a CRM that is attractive. And so people just stay with a subpar product. And so, again, when we talk about your business talking to you, if you're constantly button up against your CRM because it doesn't have this functionality or it doesn't do this thing, or it'd be great if it had this and it doesn't, but Dubsado has it, or Relevantful, if you keep coming up against those things, then your business is telling you the tools that you're using are not supporting your growth. And Dubsado, you will outgrow. I mean, I don't know if you would outgrow Dubsado because I feel like it has enough of the things that you would need, that unless you were operating in different cities and you had, I bet you Bobby Greenwald has outgrown Dubsado. You know what I mean? He called me. He's like, what software can I use to manage inventories in multiple cities? I was like, Bobby, I don't know. I don't think that exists yet. And he's like, I know, because I've tried looking, you know what I mean? So like Bobby's outgrown Dubsado, but that means you got to make it to multi-million-dollar a year, doing events in multiple cities. And in his case, doing cross-country tours where you have to track inventory in those cities. So like, bucket list. But at that point, you could hire someone to transition your CRM and do that for you from the very beginning at the enterprise level. You know what I mean? So I think for most mobile bar owners, Dubsado is the way to go from the start. And I say that now in hindsight, I probably should have always been giving that advice, but I wasn't, because I didn't have the information that I have now, which is seeing our clients butting up against the upper capabilities of HoneyBook. And HoneyBook is fine if you're, not planning to go and scale very large, but the clients that we see button up against it, they're only in the multi six-figure revenue range, which is not hard to do. And so think about Dubsado, potentially Relevantful. I don't know enough about that. I don't have enough clients on it to tell you whether or not there's, upward mobility issues on that. But if you have the right tools, it goes a long way to helping you implement the right systems.
Yeah, because HoneyBook's automations, I come from an active campaign world, which is not a CRM. Active campaign is an email management software, but it has HoneyBook has just the most elementary automations I've ever seen in my entire life, next to Flowdesk, which has like none. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, you want your client journey to really be robust, in that like your CRM should be converting more people than you're converting. And right now, this particular client is still taking phone calls for pretty much every single client to get them to book. And right now she has to, because HoneyBook does not have the functionality we need to properly nurture that client along their journey. And so to get them to close, we really do need them to be on the phone. That's not going to work for her this time next year, right? Like, that's not going to work for her in 2, 3 years. So like, we're going to have to make that painful change. And she knows that, because we want her off the phone so that she can go have coffee with new venues, and she can be doing her cold outreach and all the things. We want her to have time to grow the business. And you guys, you're going to come to a point where you grow your business to such an extent that it can't grow anymore while you're still doing things the way you've always done them. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be, because then you're the bottleneck. Then you realize that the only thing keeping you from explosive growth is you. You're in your own way. And again, hire an implementer, do this work during the wintering season. Or if you're a brand new mobile bar owner listening to this, heed these words. You know what I mean? Like, do it now. Do it now so you don't have to do it later.
And I am proof that sales calls are not necessary to close high dollar premium events. I booked $250,000 worth of per year worth of revenue before I sold my mobile bar. And that was a COVID year. So it was a partial year without a phone call. My systems were doing all the selling. My reputation obviously was also very good, but like my systems were set up to push people, to guide people through the sales process without having to talk to me. And that's possible.
The other thing I wanted to say here is that you might not even know what's possible. If you're in Honeybook and you don't come from a world of systems and automations like I did, you may not even realize that there are things that your CRM should be able to do that Honeybook can't do because you've never even seen it, right? Anyways, I love you guys so much. Sarah, thank you so much for having me back on. And I wish you all a prosperous finish to 2025. And hopefully, I'll see you guys around.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be back.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.